I now recognize Ms. Van Duyne from Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Greer, I'm sure it's been a long afternoon for you, but thank you for sitting it out. I want to thank you for being here today and for your engagement thus far on trade matters that are very important to all of us, quite the contrast from your predecessor. I know that we've heard that the trade deficit, according to the president, isn't fair, but it's fact, is it not, that we are experiencing a $1.3 trillion deficit in trade, that Americans pay out over $360 billion last year in tariffs, and yet the U.S. collects less than $80 billion. I would say that that's fact. That's not just what the president thinks. It's fact. And let me be absolutely clear. President Trump's tariff policy is not a fetish. It's results-driven. For decades, we let our trading partners take advantage of us. China flooded our markets with subsidized steel. India slapped double-digit tariffs on U.S. goods. And the EU buried our industries in red tape. And meanwhile, Washington shrugged. But thanks to this administration's unapologetic use of tariffs, countries like Israel, India, Vietnam, Mexico, and the European Union are back at the table. And they're engaging because they know the United States is now finally serious. And when I hear Democrats criticize tariffs as some kind of economic sin, I have to ask, what's their alternative? Appeasement? President Trump's approach isn't theoretical. It is producing concrete results, as we have seen in the last few weeks, results that the last administration only talked about. Tariffs are working, and not because we like them, but because we need them. They're leverage. And now they're actually making deals from a position of strength. I think that is very important. In North Texas, look, I've seen firsthand the value of trade that is fair, reciprocal, and firmly rooted in America's strategic interests. These are principles that are championed by you and President Trump. And I also understand something too many in this town seem to forget, is that trade without enforcement is surrender. And under the previous administration, enforcement was weak, inconsistent at best. Mexico violated its obligations under the 1944 Water Treaty, and they violated the USMCA with impunity. And American businesses were the ones that had to pay. We saw it firsthand with the case of Vulcan Materials, a company that operated lawfully in Mexico for decades, but then had their property invaded, shut down, and seized by Mexican armed forces. As we approach the USMCA review, can I ask how the administration is planning to protect these American business interests and ensure that Mexico complies with its obligations?
Yes, certainly, and thank you for your comments. What we see is that Mexico, despite their obligations under the USMCA, continues to discriminate against U.S. companies and U.S. products. We've seen this particularly in the energy sector, for example, where they have favored state-owned industries over American industries, which are cleaner and efficient. You mentioned the situation with Vulcan. That's something where we're paying attention. Mexico, we won a case against them about how they treat our corn, and they have a little constitutional amendment they're doing. We're watching that very closely to make sure they don't hit that. So there are a variety of unfair trading practices that Mexico has or threatens to have where we're watching that very closely. And we expect any renegotiation or review of USMCA to focus on those types of issues.
Excellent, thank you. And while the tariffs are seeming to make progress in the right direction, I'm still really concerned with China's third country subsidies and their transshipment to the steel and aluminum industries, specifically in my district. That is very important, which have enacted and enabled them to evade our duties and our tariffs. Can you comment on the specific actions that we can expect to see from this administration in terms of cracking down on transshipment and duty evasion through third country circumvention?
Certainly, and this is, for example, you mentioned steel and aluminum. The president recently tightened exclusions and exemptions under steel and aluminum because of those types of issues. I think that we need to pay attention to whether goods coming in from Mexico and Canada, for example, whether they contain a lot of Chinese content. Some of this is Customs and Border Protection, needs to do more enforcement. I know that they're focused on this. But I think that we need to make sure where we have trade agreements that the benefits of the agreement are going first to Americans and then, of course, to trading partners who follow the rules. And we have to have enforcement. And enforcement means tariffs. People say they want enforcement, but in the trade space, enforcement means tariffs. So we're going that direction too.
I'm concerned that our current trade remedy laws will not suffice, which is why I'm leading the Level the Playing Field 2.0 Act with Ms. Sewell. Do you agree it's time for Congress to update trade remedy laws?
Oh, I certainly agree with that, yes.
Awesome. All right, Ambassador, we're at a pivotal moment. We finally have a trade policy that doesn't just talk about fairness, but it actually demands it. The Trump administration has sent a clear message. The era of taking advantage of the United States is over. Thank you again for your testimony and leadership, and I yield back.